Your company is your brand, and the first thing obviously is a really good product, a product that you can feel that you and your team are behind it. There's nothing that you can't explain to the public. It's got to be a really strong product, whether it's a food product, whether it's something that you do something with. It's got to be solid. That's kind of the first thing that is very important in a brand, because you can't sell something that you're not comfortable with. The second is really giving that specific product or a suite of products a good name. So a name that sticks in people's minds, not just a name that you feel like it's going to fit the product itself. It's got to have a tie to the product, but also have a really good ring. So it's kind of a brand ring, like, four or five letters, so people remember it. When you're starting having many sort of words in a brand name, people are getting mixed up with this and so on. So and this name and the product actually is really the base of a story of what your brand is. So if you feel good with your name and you feel sort of comfortable with your product, the story of which is behind it is the most important, because this is what is going to be between you and the public, you and the people you sell it to, you and your team. You have to have a really good story and a solid story of what you're selling. And of course, with that product and the brand and the story, you have to have some design attached to it, or sort of a point of sale or marketing that fits. So if you've got a really smart name, you've got to have to follow it with really smart designs and really smart ideas of how you want to project this product. Your team is your business. You've got your good product, you've got the good marketing, you've got the good idea. You've got to have the right people to help you spread it in your country or in your world or whoever your target market is. You have to choose people that have the right skills. So not just your uncle. Quite often happens, oh, I know somebody. You really got to choose somebody that you work well with, that you think have got good ideas, that can understand your way of thoughts, and that you can project what you want the company to be like. And they all have to come on board. Your story have to be their story. If they are not understanding, and if they're not a part of you, thinking as you, but still being sort of a team with lots of ideas, look again. You find people that you really can trust and people understand you. And with that, you have to have really clear goals to everyone. Working as a team, everybody has to have the clear goals, where we're going. It's not what we're doing today, it's what we're doing next 5 years. It's what we're doing next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and how we're looking to the next 5 years. And hence, if you really have a good team, they will stay with you the whole story. They will stay with you the whole way, and you will achieve much more than just having people doing their little jobs. The whole team has to understand the whole sort of process in a way. It's a team buy-in. And it's really exciting to work when your team buys into your idea, when you can hear them talking to their friends, when you can hear them in the lunchroom talking about work, not doing other things. I mean, you can still do your, your crosswords and so on, but you want people to really be involved in what you're doing, and that kind of creates a really happy team. Happy team is a team that knows that you're looking after them, that you feel exactly the same level as they are. You don't want to have a company that you're on top and the person at the bottom is, got grudges. You want to all be one team. When people say we want family, well, this is what it is. So you look after them. You try and get them as much positive reinforcement, but also sort of like give them a bowl of fruit every week. Give them something that they will be feeling. Even people working in a factory, if you've got one, they want to be loved. They want to be part of your team. You've got to ask everybody what they think about your business all the time. So establishing your home base. So once you have your product and then you have your team, you've got to be sure that this product, before you look at the world, sits well in your own country. You've got to build a model that projects your product. A model that projects the market that you're trying to put your product into. You have to decide where exactly your product sits. It could be a really low, down the bottom shelf, which is great, or it could be up the top, the most exclusive product ever. Each one of them has got a story, and each one of them has sort of got to fit in the right market. So you've got to figure out how you position your product in the market. You have to think about your clientele. You have to think about the people who are going to buy it. You have to think about the people who are going to talk about it. When you walk in a dinner party, you want to hear people talking about your salt. This whatever kosher salt is. You want to sort of position it exactly where your market is and your product is. Do market research to figure out what the local market is needing or wanting, on how you're perceiving your product, and being sure that you're really ingrained in your own country. That means that supermarkets come to you. You can almost wait for that moment, because once the public wants you and start asking for it, supermarkets come to you, and that's what happened to us. And that was a really good feeling to have, that that people are talking about your product. It's established here. Your sales are your production is moving, and your sales are moving, and you're making your first few millions within the country. And with that, you have to make the marketing material that suits that level of product you are. So it can be a really sophisticated one, or it can be very simple. If it's for children, you have to be sure that it's got the right target. And with all that, to bear in mind that your main goal is for your customer to love your product. They love a certain soap. It can be a cheap soap, but there's always a reason why people choose your product. And if that's in the marketing material, and if you're sort of working towards that material and that idea. And launching means getting the right distribution, getting the right salespeople, getting the right people to consume it. Establishing your home base in your own country is extremely important. Once you feel comfortable that your product is well ingrained in your own country, and production is going well, and your factory can actually sustain the amount of product you have to produce here, you might want to start having a look at overseas market. Quite often, when you've got a really good brand and product within New Zealand, overseas countries are coming to you, because they come to shows within New Zealand and they start spotting your product, and they come to you and says, "Oh, would you like to go to come to Fiji? Can we have it, please, in Korea? China really wants you." Make a stop there and do your market research. Market research is extremely important. Other people, you might have a really good product here, but it completely wouldn't suit other countries. Even though people think it's, usually people that take it overseas are people that work from New Zealand to overseas, not people that live overseas. The tastes are different. So you have to be very careful what country you choose. You have to be very careful also not to spread yourself too thin, because every country costs about at least $250,000 to set up office or to set up a distribution. So you have to be very careful where how many countries you're going to look at, if any. And as well as there's so many different requirements in different countries. There's labeling requirements, there is a sugar requirements. You have to be very careful what different countries' requirements are before you launch to go overseas. Don't get overexcited, do your homework well. Participate in a lot of shows. If you participate in shows, you meet people from other countries. You meet people, distributors or agents that come to have a look in New Zealand, and just start sort of making yourself a little bit known in the world, and then you'll figure out what country suits you best. It'll be a great idea if you are thinking of doing any export to go to speak to NZTE and see if there is somebody that can work with you to figure out where is best for you to start, what regulations of every country. They have got every knowledge about agreements, regulations, tariff. There's a lot of show participation that even if you're not a client of New Zealand Trade Enterprise, they might let you join in with a fee. And obviously there's always the grant. So if you are doing well in New Zealand and your turnover is high enough, New Zealand Trade Enterprise are always very keen to help you. Actually, they keep on approaching you. So just be careful. Don't let them approach you unless they give you a lot of money. You need an NZTE support if you are going to do export. Once you do get into the NZTE kind of party in a way, It's fantastic. They really support you. First of all, they support you with grants, and then they support you with a lot of market introduction when you go to places. They support you with translations. They support you with with associations they've got overseas. They're a fantastic company. They're a fantastic organization to be involved in. So try. Even if you're small, just start a relationship with them. Establish your beachhead. Your beachhead means your first country you go to. You realize that you're doing really well in your own country. Your brand and your product is out there. People are talking about it. People are asking for it. It's going to suit to be overseas. You really have to be sure that your product does suit to be an overseas product. Otherwise, it just defeats the purpose a little bit of going through the whole shenanigan and not sort of fitting anywhere. After you spoke to NZT and you got their support, maybe they gave you some ideas of what countries your product would suit well. Maybe you got some agents from overseas that you met in shows. Decide your target country. Decide one target country, because as I said, it is very costly to start a new office or a new partnership, or any launch is very expensive. From our point of view, it's at least 250,000 that you have to have free to start a new country. And that's mainly because you don't want to just go to a country, you want to have your staff there. You want to understand the local culture. You want to be able to take your model from here overseas. And that's very expensive, because you don't want to just say, oh, well, there's my product. You just do something about it. If you're not there, it's not going to happen. You really have to have your own people. You might have time to just get people from that specific country and train them in your own company. But if your story doesn't follow with your product and you just give it to a third agent, it's going to sit in the warehouse somewhere. You've got to have the excitement when you move to. You have to have the belief in the product that you're moving to another country, and you have to give that story on to other people, and that they believe you, and they see you there. They see events, they see articles about you. You've got to be in the media, you've got to be out there, and you have to be with your same sort of way you feel about your own product here. It's got to move with you to the other country. You have to have a really good relationship with your partners and the partners of the partners and the distributors that they choose. You have to know their birthdays. You have to send them emails. You have to think what they like, because this is what's going to make your base of a success in the country. We started in some countries we started like this, and it was fantastic. In some countries we just had an agent, and it was a waste of time. If you're not there, it's not going to happen. It doesn't mean you. It's one of your team, or one of the team that has actually moved to the country and sorted a new team and then came back. You've got to be sure that your head office in your own country supports that team there. They have to feel a part of the company, and that you're constantly there, giving them what they need, changing for their whatever regulation in the country is, because regulation problem in every country are completely different. Once you're comfortable with your model, that is, model manages to move to another country, you have to start doing the relationship development, and that is a crucial part in your success overseas. Mainly in the countries like Korea, China, Japan, it's vital to be sure that everybody's behind you within that country. So you've got your own people there, but they have distributors, they have agents, they have shopkeepers, they have their own customers, they've got people working in the office. You've got to have everybody excited. Everybody kind of really like you're part of the same family within New Zealand. So I know that my Korean customers there, and when I say customers, I'm talking about my agents there and my distributors. I think about them almost daily. I walk in town and I buy gifts for them just in case, so when I go next time, I know that they like it. If it's summer here, I buy sort of New Zealand slippers to send it to them because it's minus 17 degrees. I'm walking around and suddenly I see this beautiful honey. I buy it because they haven't got this beautiful honey and they're so excited about Manuka honey. I constantly think about what can I put from myself to them so they'll feel part of us. And I do it a lot, and the whole company does it a lot. And I think that's really very important to have a good relationship. So then suddenly you get an email from them, you know, their son finished the army, they send you a photo, he's safe. You know, it's heartwarming. You know their birthdays, and you just kind of little mentions like this. And you know that they'll love you back if you love them. And if they love you, they'll do a lot of work for you. And they'll persuade people that they sell to that this is a good company. And so relationship is vital. And again, relationship from head office within New Zealand to whoever is working overseas is vital as well. Never forget them. Send them daily emails. Remind them what a great job they do. It's miles away. They can, you know, they can be forgotten. They have to feel that they're remembered at everything they do. You know, it's for your, you know, it's for your company. It's growing your company. There's no way about it, other way about it. Yeah, your product can be fantastic, but it'll sit there unless there's a fantastic team behind. And then there's obviously this one scary thing about payment. So letter of credit from banks is important. So in a way, you want to be sure that whatever company you work with is big enough to have a letter of credit. If it's a little distributor, they might not get it. So you want to secure yourself, because sometimes you send a container at $70,000, and then when it just arrives, there's another 70,000 container going, and they haven't paid for the first one or the second one. You can sit on a lot of money, and if first of all, it's not very good for your turnover, for your financial situation here. But second, something might happen to the product. Maybe it won't be allowed in. Maybe it won't sell. Maybe they'll fold. So you have to be very careful that you have a letter of credit. Establishing the next step is really establishing an export model. You've got your product really settled here. The model works well here. You've got the model works really well in a second country. The next step is, where do you go on from there? Because, you know, once you start exporting, you don't want to just export to one country. So you have to think, do you want to go to a completely different continent? Or would you like to, for instance, have a center in one of the Asian countries? And from there you find yourself some other closer by countries, which means it's an easier way of controlling. You've got your office there, and you've got the people with the culture, and they can move, you know, an hour in a plane to start a new market. Sometimes it's an easier solution. It worked for us extremely well. We've got our head office in Korea, and we've got now quite a big established network there. And with this network, we're launching to all the other countries in the area, which means that even our distributors going to Japan with our salespeople, even the Chinese coming to Korea to have demonstrations. It's an easy way when you've got, it's a bit like people thinking, oh, if I'm in New Zealand, I can do Australia. It's just across the water. It means that you've got less financial burden if you can use your headquarters in one country to launch into other countries. On the other hand, it's very tempting to go start in for instance, in the UK. UK, New Zealand is a little bit the same kind of taste buds if you got a product regarding a food product. And it's tempting. Again, you have to be extremely careful that even though it's England and even though you think they think like you, you've got to be there. They're not going to do the job for you. It's always tempting to go to further afield. So you have to figure out, first of all, is it feasible to send things to far away? Is it feasible regarding shelf life? Is it feasible regarding regulations in that country? You don't want to expand to places that you have to work everything again and start your whole research again. You know, quite often people think, oh, I'll go to Europe or to the UK because it's so like New Zealand, it's so easy. Well, it's not. It's not the same distribution, it's not the same tariffs, it's not the same regulation, and it's not the same distribution. So it's a completely new adventure, and it's a completely new country that you have to start from the beginning, your whole team, your whole brand association, your whole brand base, and so on. So it's something people have to really weigh which direction they go. Again, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise can help you there. Once you've started exporting and your turnover is getting bigger, I'm sure that, well, depends what it is, that you should really involve New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, and they might give you a hand where to move on next and whether they will give you another grant, because quite often they give you one grant for one area and then another grant for another area and then another grant for another area, because once they invest in your company, they want to continue investing in your company. Internationalize your brand. This is a big step because you've got your country well sorted out, you've got another one, maybe you've got a third one, and now you want to launch in the whole world. We have to come back to the thing that people, the company, the brand, and the people behind us is extremely important. You don't take a third party to run your business. So again, it's very costly, but it's very important. You've got to carry your culture, you've got to carry the brand, and you've got to be sure that it stands anywhere in the world. So IP is most important because, as you know, Chinese might start making a product like yours and call it the same, and it starts being muddled. You know, many people already wore a watch which is not a watch. Maybe it tells the time but doesn't go in the water. The same with your product. You don't want to really go in the market and suddenly see your product being used and it's not yours. And it's happened to us. It's not very comfortable. And it's an expensive process, because when you want to do an IP around the world, every country is separate. You also have to be extremely careful and be sure that the quality assurance standard in your company is aligned with the rest of the world. There are different quality assurances. Go to the highest one, and then you know you're covered. You're covered for Japan, you're covered for the US, and you're covered for the UK. It's very important because you don't want to visit it again and again each time you've got a new country on board, as well as all the visitors coming to you. You want to be sure that you've got all the ticks, which means that you can actually give it to McDonald's if you want to. So you've got to be up there. You also have to be sure that your facility can cope with the extra production. China, if you need three containers a month, that's a huge, expansion for what you had when you only had one container a month that you're sending. You have to be very careful that you don't overstretch yourself. It sounds obvious, but when a day comes and you can't send and you're late and so on, it's not a very comfortable position to be here. So you want to be 100% sure there. And the third thing, the last thing, is really having good partners within New Zealand, partners within the world, and that you always bring them with you, as well as the banks. The banks have to understand your story. They have to be behind you. Otherwise, they won't lend you. And from experience, we always spoke to the bank. Bad times, good times, we always explained what's happening to us, and then we were sure that they will understand, and if they're comfortable with our story, they will give us funds.